Hi, I'm Lynne Franks and welcome to my podcast, Frankly Speaking with Lynne Franks and Friends. Family relationships have to be the most challenging of all, at least in my experience. I truly believe we choose our family as our biggest teachers and vice versa. And certainly my special guest and friend Moon Zappa in this new episode chose a far from normal family to be born into. The eldest of four to rock star and philosopher Frank Zappa and his wife Gail, Moon grew up in an intensely challenging household, which is now written about in her spellbinding new book, Earth to Moon. I've known Moon and her family after I moved to LA in the 90s, and although I missed out meeting the already passed away charismatic Frank, who would have probably scared me to death, I was soon embraced into the bosom of this matriarchal household and saw firsthand the chaos and games that Mother Gail, the keeper of the Zappa legend, would often play. I was fascinated by this huge, noisy family home and the extraordinary creative characters I would meet there, and always felt close to sensitive Moon, whose own creativity as a performer and writer was very obviously far beyond her teenage world hit single, Valley Girl, put together by her prolific father when she was 14. Her book is a brilliant read, where the scenes of growing up in this Laurel Canyon musical household as the daughter of one of the world's most famous rock stars, even today, so many years after he passed away, comes to life to enthrall, to entertain, to amuse, and to learn from. Earth to Moon. Incredible book. I'm here with Moon Zappa, my friend Moon Zappa. Get a bit emotional about the whole thing, actually. This extraordinary book, this incredible must-be-read book that she has written for anybody like me that's remotely, or anybody like any of us that are interested in family dynamics, the whole area of bohemian culture coming out of LA in the 60s and 70s, fans of your dad, Frank Zappa, and so much more. I mean, it's an incredible book, Moon. And one thing I just want to say to you is, you are a writer. I mean, I know you're all these other things as well, but you are a writer. And I read and have, and was even mentioned in one of the many, in your novel that you wrote. What year was that?
2002, I believe.
2002, wasn't it?
It might have been earlier. I don't recall, actually.
Anyway, it was good. But this is incredible. But, I mean, we've seen each other since Gail died. So, and we've talked about what she left behind, her sort of need to control even after she passed away. And obviously that's a big part of the book, but I just wanted to ask you, it just came to me. I mean, I've got lists and lists of questions and notes and so many things because I wasn't part of the story by any means. I think I met you about 3 or 4 years after your dad died. So, and I just come to LA around about 97. So I was sort of part of the kind of hanger-on-y group of people with the Zappa family from about 97, but obviously I saw a lot of that stuff. And the question I want to start off by saying is, would you have written this book if Gail hadn't done what she did at the end, which was divide you up as siblings, controlling things from the grave, the most terrible thing she could have possibly done, really, in terms of all the legalities of your dad, of Frank's estate and all the rest of it? Would you have still written the book? I just occurred to me.
Yeah, no one's asked me that question. I probably would not have, actually. Growing up, everyone, of course, always asked me, what was it like growing up with Frank Zappa for a father? And I always thought it was Gail's story to write and to tell because she was the adult opposite Frank. She knew the references. She loved his music. She was there for a lot of it, most of it, and she was a buried artist herself, and so I was always encouraging her to lean into her own artistic abilities. I mean, she was amazing with color and design, and I just think she was probably a deeply unsatisfied artist in her own right, among many other things that she didn't really address, and so. And if I had written it any sooner, it would have been something pretty lighthearted about the, 12 to 14 fun, quirky things about growing up Zappa family values, kind of light, fluffy read or something, essays or something silly, But because of what she did, my whole family, my whole sense of trust, my whole sense of belonging, of loyalty, betrayal, all of it. It was burned to the ground, and I had to rebuild myself and completely start over.
Yeah. It was horrible what she did, absolutely horrible. But anyway, starting from the beginning, or not quite the beginning, it's a very honest book. I mean, you're very self-critical all the way through, especially when you were a teenager, full of all your angst that teenagers go through. And then suddenly you're thrust into this incredible high-profile situation at 14 years old of making a record, which was really just a bit of fun, I guess, for your dad, and turns out to be his biggest hit ever, Valley Girl. Um, I mean, what an experience. And suddenly you're on all these prime time TV shows across America talking about, this hit record and all the rest of it. And I mean, first of all, I'll tell you a little bit. I'd like to bring in my perception as sort of an insider outsider, because I was quite close with Gail, with you, with the family for a number of years while this book was gestating, really. And I didn't know about you. I mean, obviously, I'd heard of Frank Zappa, but I wasn't a Frank Zappa fan. I didn't know his work. That's the irony of the whole thing for me. And I wasn't aware of the genius of the man, because he clearly was a genius. I am aware of it now. So for me to be invited into the family home, which I was after meeting Gail through a mutual friend quite early on, and she sort of adopted me as she tended to do. She was quite selective with her adoptees, I'd like to say. It wasn't, she didn't adopt everybody. You had to be incredibly brilliant and funny and interesting, or you just, I don't know, which I wouldn't say I was any of those, but, or she just liked me, I guess.
And not a candidate for sleeping with Frank. That was the other criteria.
Well, by the time I came along, Frank wasn't there, but I don't think I would have ever been Frank's type. Yeah, no. Yeah, exactly. She wasn't friendly with too many groupies, or if any of them. But it was always an extraordinary experience for me, because I came to live in LA in around about 96, 97, and I brought a book out called, what was it called? I can't even remember absolutely now, which was my autobiography. And Gail came to the bookshop and bought every single copy she could. I gave them out to everybody she knew. I mean, she had that sort of kindness also aspect and generosity, and got my book to sort of number 4 for about a minute and a half in the LA Times book charts. So I've always, that was an amazingly nice thing to do. And then she did adopt me and take me around with you and the others to various parties where I'd end up having in-depth conversations with someone like Billy Connolly, who was brilliant and who I'd never met otherwise, or meeting Michael Richards opening the door, guy, the Kramer from Seinfeld, opening the door when I went around to see her, and things like that, which was like, shit, I really am living in LA. But it was a side of LA of much more interesting people that obviously she and Frank had hung out with for years, and that you grew up with. So there was, I guess, for you, access to some extraordinary people. Did you feel that when you were growing up, or not?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is,
took it for granted, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it just wasn't that interesting to me, because when I would encounter people that were working at the highest level, they were either very immersed in their work, or they were their downtime. They were not really pursuing things that were interesting to me. If it was drinking, for example, or uh, uh, you know, sleeping around or something.
So I didn't see all that stuff. I came in too late for all that. So
right,
all...
and I hadn't. I just, when I was meeting people at the top of their game, and they weren't really thinking about their interior life, or they weren't really. It seemed that they were also self obsessed, and so I didn't really encounter a lot of people that were
interesting,
or generous in terms of how they extended themselves to other people, or just thought about the human experience, or I don't know. It was just, I just didn't find a compatible matches in that sense. But growing up where you're introduced to your parents as Frank and Gail from the onset, it was extremely overwhelming to me. I think the term they call it now is being parentified. And I didn't have an interest in becoming famous or having a public anything. I was a very shy kid. I'm a shy adult. And I think most artists that go into that field either feel this overwhelming need to be the center of attention, get the love they didn't get from their parents, or they have a natural ability, or some combination. And I didn't even, growing up in the house I grew up in, I didn't even have a way to get fed in some manner. Achieving didn't make my parents stop and pay attention. Uh, Being a mess didn't change anything. Being sick, like all the things that people try to do to have some connection when their parents are just not naturally loving. And so part of the journey of the book was not only humanizing my parents but humanizing myself. I thought so much of what was happening in my life was my fault, because if I wasn't getting a result like attention, somebody helping me build my life and my dream, I thought there was something wrong with me, deeply inherently wrong with me. And I didn't realize it was because that people only give what they can give, and what they give themselves, or their attention is somewhere else. So I literally had to dissect this like forensically, and to treat it like I was solving a cold case.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, a very, very difficult situation. But as an outsider, I have to tell you, and you may know this, you may not want to even hear it, but Gail was immensely proud of you. I mean, she was a very angry woman. Every time I met her, she was suing somebody else. She was angry with somebody else's about Frank's estate. She was incredibly overpossessive. She was, without question, a frustrated artist in some way or other. She wanted to be seen. The only way she could be seen was by having this control over all of you and over Frank's estate. But having said all that, she was so proud of everybody. She was proud. When you did that one woman show that, we all went to, she could not have been prouder. So, there's this kind of mixed, I get it. And and I have a daughter and we have our shit too. So, I mean, it's a really hard one. But the fact that your whole upbringing was so bizarre compared to probably other kids around the corner, it really. But she was mean. She had a mean streak. There's no question about it.
She
She
did, and
had
you
a
know,
mean.
and the thing too is again, I think maybe a lot of this, it could be relatable to a lot of people if you ever felt marginalized or like an outsider in your own home or somewhere. But the difference is, if you have no support and no one cheerleading for you, and you don't know that you're supposed to have someone cheerleading for you, it can be quite damaging. And Gail, it was tricky because she was in a tricky marriage. I mean, this is a man who, we all felt jealousy of the fans, of anybody or anything that took Frank away from us, even a lawsuit. I could be jealous of a lawsuit. Do you know what I mean? Because it got his full attention. And unfortunately, Gail also felt that way about some of her kids, that if we got attention, then it was less attention for her.
Yeah.
And again, I tried really hard to not blame her, to just kind of like describe these circumstances, and to teach myself how to hold the space for paradox. And I think that's something that's a skill that's very useful for anyone, to just hold all the circumstances as best as we can, and not. I mean, blame is just a waste of time, because
It's a complete waste of time. And we can't change the past. We have to change the present and the future. I mean, the place where we really connected, of course, with Gail as well, interestingly enough, although I think she came along just to be part of it, was Five Rhythms, and Gabrielle Roth's incredible dance work, and on the dance floor. So we would go Five Rhythmsing most weeks somewhere in some big hall somewhere.
I know Gail didn't have this outlet, or any outlet, for really saying, I leave this on the dance floor. I leave this here. So I leave my anger here in a constructive way. I leave my frustrations. She didn't have, she didn't have that. I don't know. It was just, it was like a runaway train. Our house was a chaotic runaway train, and all of this behind the scenes, and to make sure Frank wasn't touched by this chaos, to just make sure that Frank got to do his work. And again, that's what I'm asking in the book: is genius worth the collateral damage for everybody else? Because we just tried to make it as seamless as possible so Frank could do his immense work. In some ways, I just think that I mean, today he might have been diagnosed as being on the spectrum somehow, because
we all are. I am.
Exactly. But was he incapable of thinking of others, or did he just choose not to? And if he chose not to, the fact that he could live with not worrying about other people, that's a mystery and a conundrum right there. It's, as a parent, I find it remarkable.
How's your daughter?
Doing very well. Thank you for asking.
How old is she now?
Almost 20.
No.
Second year of college. Yep.
Oh my God.
I know.
I can remember when you were pregnant. God, time goes so fast. And she's
Yeah, it does.
well. I mean, there's a lot of very moving pages in the book about when she got very sick when she was 7. I think it was about 7, wasn't
Yeah, I
she?
mean, we both have a bit of serious PTSD and seasonal anxiety around that time frame. Still, I mean, it really takes a lot to just train yourself to say all is well, and especially in a world that keeps to get crazier. Even if you uh, make sure your own house feels as wonderful as possible, then you step out into the terrarium of madness, and you have another skill sets required for how to maneuver outside of your little safety space, your safe nest.
Yeah, because what always seems so safe can just go like that, can't it? Just
Yeah,
takes a click. I can't believe Matilda's nearly 20. Well, I can't believe it, but it's so much that's gone past. And you've moved to Taos, or you moved to New
I
Mexico?
have moved to quite a few places. I'm actually the book actually was part of that decision making. I just felt so displaced after basically losing my family, living family members. I wanted to be in a place where no one could find me, and Taos is one of those places where you can just disappear and you're just surrounded by nature.
It's wonderful there. I love it.
And now I'm in search of another place. I don't know. I feel like I've never had the chance to put roots down and just see seasons continually.
Come to
And
Somerset. Come to Somerset where I am. It's wonderful here. It's I love that.
I really will visit and see.
You must come and visit. So we haven't talked specifically about, although we've referred both of us to what happened towards the end of the book, which was how Gail left things, which is what caused such pain and what you feel lost you, your family, your living members of your family, who you've been so close with when you were growing up. As the older sibling, you had taken care. I did see a few seconds of a podcast you did with Ahmed, and I thought, and are you getting on well with him now, or?
I've made some inroads there. It really my siblings have not had either as much therapy as I've had or any therapy, and so I'm still the path cutter in that way. And I go where the Venn diagram allows for connection, and I just try to understand that we were all given some similar ingredients and some very different ingredients in the pot. And so wherever there's discord, I just try to understand that everybody handles chaos and stress and
I mean, what
sorrow
Gail and
differently.
what she actually did, as far as I can understand, is despite Frank having been very clear that his legacy would be divided equally between the four of you, she changed it so that you and Dweezil were left out of the will, more or less. Is that what happened, or?
Yeah, and so it's not that we were left out of receiving the stuff. It's that she said that we could never have anything to do with the intellectual property. We could never have any say or contribution to furthering our father's legacy. That not only that, but so no decision making, and then of course an unequal distribution of assets. But also she said that if any of us find God, then we don't even get the bit that we have. And so
That bit is unbelievable.
that's the part that threw me the most. And also that she, in essence, wished two of her children, her blood children, well infinitely, but not the other two. Unimaginable as a parent,
Yeah,
unconscionable.
yeah.
That was just a surprise. I didn't know your meanness could survive your death. It was a
Do you
complete
think it was because
shock.
she felt she couldn't control you and Dweezil the way she controlled Diva and Amit? I don't know about Amit, but I spent a lot of time with her and Diva and she can. I mean, Diva just followed her around like a little pussycat, really.
Yeah, I mean, I can't, who can say? All I can say is I was just gobsmacked by this last word. And so my healing process has been getting larger than death, getting larger than cruelty, getting larger than somebody's final word. And maybe it's because I grew up in books and show business and movies where at the very end somebody finally comes around and says the apology they've always meant to
Yeah,
say,
and it all becomes
they
perfect.
they give a gift as a lasting thing. And none of that. So there was probably some of my shock was also due to an expectation that she would finally say, I'm sorry I wasn't there, I'm sorry for blah blah blah. And instead of saying sorry, she doubled down on her resentments and her her lesser side, because we all know that she had this incredible generosity,
She
as you
did.
described, and so why it wasn't extended to me and to Dweezil, that's she took that to her grave.
Yeah. And of course, Dweezil for years has been performing as Zappa on Zappa. I've seen him again,
It's so
encouraged by
difficult to even
Gail.
play the music to start with. So why wouldn't you make sure the one person in the family who can play the music, who knows
Yeah.
Frank differently than we will ever know
Who's a
him,
great musician. And yeah,
exactly, has that full support?
it's so bizarre. And your relationship, or Dweezil's not, as far as I can understand from the book, Dweezil's not connecting with the three of you still. There's some kind of
Yeah,
breakup.
that's his choice. I think my guess is a friend of my enemy is my enemy. That kind of thinking, but I don't begrudge any of us because we all sacrificed so much for
Yeah,
Frank's legacy to exist and to carry on.
yeah.
And from my perspective, as the oldest, there's no measurement of who gave more. And if I was going to do the measurement, maybe because I've been here the longest.
I
but
am the eldest.
but my
Yeah.
point is, you in my mind, it's all for one for all, and
Yeah,
that was the
she didn't
formula.
trust not only you four, but she didn't trust anybody in her life that she believed could make any decisions about anything to do with Frank's legacy or anything else that would be as good as any decision she could make. And I remember falling out with her brothers. I remember your lovely grandmother coming backwards and forwards from Hawaii. But she was always falling out. And
Well, and the other mystery was
I feel so,
Frank, he laid out his decision. And so when Gail didn't do what the maestro asked for and then said she was doing it in his name, this again was something that I had to reconcile,
so screwed up.
that she said it was for him, but it wasn't what he asked for. So that was so confusing as well. And
Yeah.
again, just untangling every little strand of this has been a real process. I mean, I will say that had it gone the way I thought it was going to go, I probably wouldn't have followed my own creativity. I'm not giving that to Gail as a gift, as a dark gift of this journey. I will say that I just my tenacity, which I inherited from her, makes lemonade, and my good thinking that I inherited from my father. I I had no choice except to invest in myself in a way that I never ever understood or would have done. So
The bit you said about, which I did pick up from your book, that if any of you four followed God in any way, you would be cut off automatically. I find that extraordinary. I took her on several occasions to the Brahma Kumaris, who are a women's-led spiritual organization who focus on God in meditation every day. And she came with me. I mean, not too often, but she came with me two or three times. And it was all about I never heard that bit from her. So where that came from,
well, and the
I
thing too is that
just
she was into TM. I mean,
she was into everything.
we had a family Ouija board. My spirituality, she was part Druid. I mean, my spirituality was formed by her. So anyway, what if you called trees God? What, you can't have trees in your life? I mean, it's such a. She didn't say organized religion. She said God.
God, unbelievable, really.
Unbelievable that she put
And
herself above God, or she said
yeah,
money. You have to choose money or God.
I find that I think she really got very sick at the end. I can
Yeah,
only assume. I
yeah.
mean, she was physically. I used to look at the pictures around her house of when she and Frank were young. I mean, you were a baby, and this sort of beautiful young woman that she was with this long hair and these big eyes and skinny. And she became, by the time I knew her, very overweight, hated herself, hated her body, always going on silly diets and then filling herself with sugar and crap. I mean, she was a deeply unhappy person.
Yeah.
And as a Buddhist, which I have been on and off 40 years and very strongly practicing now, I find that it makes me feel better when I send love. I'm just saying, as your
Mm-hmm.
friend. And, I think we just have to really send Gail love wherever she is, because as angry and as upset as she has made you and watch the damage she's done between you and your siblings, she really was a very unhappy woman, and we have to kind of appreciate and send her that love.
And that is definitely how I saw her my entire life. In spite of her acts, I always had empathy and compassion for her. Another philosophy I enjoy is when people don't send people love and they send the love to themselves to withstand the light eaters. This is
Okay.
another path that's
I must say,
equally
I never knew
beneficial.
that thing about your wedding. That I never knew. I must have been
Yeah.
not in LA at that point. Because I remember when you first got together with Paul, but I definitely didn't remember that she had stopped you in that crazy Malibu house that she bought. I mean, I don't even know how, I don't
Uh,
remember how long she had it, maybe 3 or 4 years, spent all that time
yeah.
rebuilding it, then
Yeah.
sold
Yeah.
it. And
I know it's one of the most outrageous stories in the book. I mean, again, I tried to just show everyone as flawed and wonderful, and that's just that.
I must say, because we're talking in a way that, assuming everybody that's listening to this has read the book, the story about the wedding was that you were marrying your boyfriend, your fiance, and you the only thing you asked her for was that the wedding party could be held at the Malibu house outside overlooking the ocean, which was an incredible, wonderful spot that she had found with cliffs overlooking the sea. It was amazing. And she refused to let you have your wedding there. And then she insisted on going with you, well, you'd already bought your wedding dress that you were very happy with. She insisted on going with you to see it and then telling you how it didn't suit your skin color and how awful it was, then insisted on buying you a completely different one, which I don't know if there was ever even any time to do all the fittings for, which was ridiculously expensive. What was it, like $16,000 or
Something madness,
$60,000?
something
And then
made.
insisted on paying for it. So, I mean, there are these stories all the way through that just make up a composite of an extraordinary period of time in your life, in her life, and that's part of, I guess, our current culture because the word Zappa has become so. Uh, I mean, it's part of our current culture. Frank Zappa, we don't know. I didn't know him. The people that are his fans didn't know him, but there is this background to this genius who was, without question, an extraordinary, brilliant man, and yet all the other stuff was just, I don't, anyway, a lot of
Yeah,
pain
the feedback that I've gotten from people at some of the
that didn't
readings
know
that,
you.
yeah, they've said, "Oh, I've always thought you were been jealous of your life, or thought nepotism was this wonderful thing," and and then they're like, "Thank God I have my own life." And then they see, oh, there are times when nepotism is there is no advantage to it, and so that's and it's also a portrait of, I guess, what they're also calling toxic femininity, where women just pulverize themselves into dust for a man, and just and lose themselves entirely. And so that, to me, that was Gail, and then that was even a worse version of that. That was the message for me. So I and then rebelling against that also caused havoc. If I said to Gail, let's get a divorce, stand on your own 2 feet. This was also something that was just not.
Never going to
It was
happen.
an argument. There was an argument about it. So there
Yeah.
was no path where there. I mean, maybe Gail deep down thought, yes, go fly and go farther than I did, but that was certainly not verbalized to me. She might have said it to other people that she was proud of me for things, but
She did.
it wasn't.
But it doesn't matter. If she didn't say it
Yeah,
to you, that's meaningless.
right.
And I think that a lot of people, whether they're Frank Zappa fans, whether they're Moon Zappa fans, whatever it is, there's a lot of people that will get an awful lot out of this book because you are so truthful. I mean, painfully truthful, but it's also such an incredible book that takes the reader on a journey of understanding, as you call it, nepotism, but just what it was like growing up in one of the canyons. What was the canyon your house was in?
Laurel Canyon,
Oh,
which
you
is
were
like,
actually in Laurel Canyon.
yeah,
And I mean, I'm in some ways hugely envious that you grew up in that period, but you're probably a bit young for that when all of
yeah.
those amazing singers and Joni Mitchell and Crosby, Stills and all those Carole King, everybody was in Laurel Canyon. Did you get to see any of those people? And did they, in my imagination, did they sit around your kitchen table making amazing music, or is that just my fantasy?
Both of my parents really did not have friends or those kinds of interactions. I
They
mean,
didn't, did they?
no, I mean, or if they had them, they were not having them when we were around. And I mean, I know Bob Dylan came to the house. I know we had the Chieftains came to the house. The Tuvins came to the
Yeah,
house.
I met a few people. I would
Yeah,
love to see everybody sort of sitting around the table, guitar in hand, like playing and just jamming and all this
no,
amazing music. It wasn't like that, was
I
it?
would have loved that.
Wouldn't that have been fun?
But the thing is that yeah, we had two sit down meals a year, Christmas and Thanksgiving, and then the rest of the time it was a free for all. You just
I was there
have
for
a
quite a lot of that.
right quesadilla on the waterbed, watching TV. I mean,
And the
it's
cats, the white cat walking across the table where the food was, and the dogs,
licking the
and
butter, and then you make some toast with it. It's
it's chaos. It was chaos. Well, a
chaos.
beautiful house. And what's happened to the house? Has Lady Gaga bought it or something? Or
Right. And then I think one of Mick Jagger's daughters now
yeah,
has it. Yeah.
that was an amazing house. I'm grateful that I even caught the tail end of it because I wasn't part of the family, so I didn't get damaged by it. So I
Yeah.
could just sort of observe and pick up the positive
Well,
sides of it.
that's the thing. That house was incredible. I mean, it started off as a two-bedroom house. I called the style Mediterranean because it was
Yeah.
Tudor Mediterranean. It was madness. But Gail, we had a construction worker Monday through Saturday, and then on Sunday he'd come and feed the cats. So it was we called the last person who worked there Slave Tonio because he just he was just there to
There was always work going on there, always. And
and
Gail
that
used to say to me, come and stay when I'd left LA and I was coming backwards and forwards, come and stay, come and stay. And I would always think of good reasons why it didn't really make sense to come.
because it was so noisy and crazy and busy and cramped and whatever, but and chaotic. And then that's the thing. So
Mm.
I think she kept things chaotic so she didn't have to stop and feel, to be honest.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. So what now and what next? Because this has been, I imagine, an enormously cathartic experience to get all this out of you. Has it got all of this out of you?
You know what's weird, Lynn, is that now that I've written it, I did have the expectation that I would just feel clean on the inside and the outside. And what's actually occurred is that it's kind of left me with a more full picture of how much I've lost and where I'm stunted and where I need the support that I simply never had. So I'm listening to a book called Mother Hunger. I'm listening to a book called Motherless Mothers, and I'm just letting myself off the hook for stuff that I mean, even something as simple as difficulty with decision making. This is a symptom of not being mothered well, or that negative self talk. That's a symptom of not having somebody encouraging me. And that's the thing too about death. I always thought, oh, if you have somebody wonderful in your life, that even when they die, of course it's sad, but then internally you have their positive voice cheering you on as you continue on. And many people have this, but if you don't have this voice, you have to build it without any map, without any architecture. And so I'm always looking to who does self-love the best, who does, so, and one way to find that out is, who are you jealous of? And I go, okay, what am I jealous of? Oh, that person is able to get their ideas off the ground, or that person is able to have a support system I don't have. So jealousy is a big indicator of where where the work is needed. And so that's something that I pay attention to. And of course I'd love to continue writing, and
You must continue writing. You must continue writing.
thank you.
Fiction.
Yeah, that's what I'd like to do. And the thing about fiction is it really is way scarier than nonfiction because it really talks about what you're actually interested in, what you're actually thinking about. And so I feel a kind of fear and excitement about heading in the direction of fiction.
Oh, I so can see you, really. You are a brilliant, I said this, I started off this conversation, but I'm going to say it again. You are a brilliant writer. You bring the reader in. That's how you know when it's a brilliant writer. You become part of the story. And again, I cannot recommend enough for people to buy this book. So it's doing really well in America. You've had fantastic publicity, I keep seeing, because it keeps popping up on my feeds. People
Yeah,
have been very receptive, haven't they?
yeah, I think it's a slow burn because I think people get nervous about books where it's like, uh-oh, somebody's going to talk about things that, normally people avoid talking about. And so I hope I've done a version where, there's humor in it, and and I've hopefully given some language to some difficult ideas and circumstances. Because for me, that's what art is about. When somebody can say the thing, I'm like, that's how I feel. Or they dance and they have movement where I say, wow, they've just expressed the wordless thing I can't name. Uh, or music, you have an anthem that you just, for some reason, it just makes you feel invincible, and you just keep listening to that song over and over again. Or it brings you to tears, and you can let that be a magic carpet that carries some other sorrows out of your sphere. It's so all of this is a conversation that is, if you share your story, then I have a better chance of sharing my next story better. Do you know what I mean? So it's so important that we have that kind of back and forth community in some form or another. And I think art is the most fun way to do it.
Yeah. Well, I am going to send your book, both my son and my daughter. My daughter, who is, among other things, a 5 teacher, who I do have really some very hurtful issues with. And I like to think I have always supported and loved her. But it's all so subjective. And we come into this, I believe, we also come into this world with a certain amount of shit that we're carrying. And then we get influenced. And, I definitely could have been a much better parent than I was, but but I never would have been mean like Gail was. But at the
Well, that's the
same
thing. My
time,
kid has many complaints about me, and it's so frustrating because I tried my hardest to end a pattern, but everyone is their own self. But the thing is that the willingness to repair a rupture, the willingness to sit with someone in their pain and their discomfort, the willingness to just listen without anything, just being a hand to hold and an ear and a heart. I mean, this is my value system. This is how I choose to live my life. I wear I wear the word love on my shirts and my face because I just want to remind myself to be love.
yeah,
What would love do? What would love say in this situation? And I don't know where I got that. Maybe I was born with that, but that's just I just have that as that's how I live my life. That's my North Star.
yeah. Well, I've always found you an incredibly loving person. And I just have to see you and I feel love. So love to you, but also just love surrounding you. So I think, this is, I mean, you're still living this book because you're going around promoting it. You're talking about it all the time. It's not letting it lie down. It's
Mm-hmm.
in your
Mm-hmm.
consciousness with people like me asking you annoying questions. But there will be a time when this will quieten down. And that's the time for you to go somewhere, in a desert somewhere, and desert with also no name, and just be wherever and
Yeah.
just be. And
Yeah.
then the new moon will rise. And
Thanks for bringing tears to my eyes. I appreciate that, Lynn.
I'm
Yeah.
with you, honey, all of the way. And I just feel it so much. Tell me about the tea, just to change the subject, because
Oh,
that
you're
was
so kind.
interesting.
Yeah, so tea is my side passion, my side soothing. I grew up, that was a real comfort to me. And so I have a little tea company called Moon Unit Tea, and I have about 7 teas. And I just, my business is just really starting out, and it's available online. You can go to moonunit.com and order yours. But yeah, that's one of the ways I also center myself, is just having a cup of tea, the pouring of the water, the steam, imagining where the leaves came from. I visited tea plantations. It was incredible to see women picking the leaves, bud at a, 2 leaves in a bud, one at a time, putting it in a beautiful basket.
Where were they? Sri Lanka
this
or?
this is in Darjeeling, and
Oh,
they're
actually,
they're
yeah.
they're carrying these baskets, avoiding cobras and elephants, and they're hiking up great distances in the heat. Then it's sitting on a conveyor belt. I mean, every single step of it is a miracle that you have this cup of tea. So I did. It's the mountain, the weather. That's what's in your cup. So it's very calming to sit and be with a cup of tea and all the
Cup
steps
of
that
tea.
it's amazing. It's absolutely
Yeah, I love
amazing.
it. Well, we have to have a cup of tea next time somehow, whether we meet, whether it's LA or here or Taos. I'll definitely come to Taos. I love Taos. I love New
Great.
Mexico. But we'll all come to me in Somerset, which is kind of similar, really. And after you finish doing this tour, have you any plans? Do you know what you're doing or?
I'm probably going to pursue different residencies and just kind of hop from location to location. Just be yeah, just kind of immerse myself in my work. That's the thing. I never gave myself the same kind of respect, my creativity, the same respect that we gave my father's creativity. And so
Right.
I have a real desire to just say, what is my expression and how do I best serve my work? I just haven't, as a woman, I've never done that. As an artist, I've never done that. And so this is a time for me to, yeah, just kind of say, what are you thinking about, Moon? Not to sound too third person-y, but that is what I kind of have to do here.
Yeah, it is what you have to do, and you will. So there's much more coming. And has it all been sorted out now? All the legalities? Is that all quietened down?
Well, so Universal, Amit sold the intellectual property to Universal, and I think they're doing a really good job of making sure that the my father's legacy continues, and the materials that have still not been explored and enjoyed, they have much more to literally unpack from the vault. And Dweezil independently continues to make sure Frank's music's heard, and so that's that sorted. In terms of the relationships, I reserve one molecule of hope for everybody, but
Well, the person that I worry about the most, actually, or not worry, I don't consciously worry, but I'm concerned about is Diva. Because
yeah,
she didn't really have a life. She didn't have a life. She was just kind of in Gail just dragged her around with her and all these
yeah.
journeys and trips and everything, and she didn't really evolve. And I guess she has now. I saw pictures and I read what she said, and I know she's doing tarot readings and
Yeah, she really is an artist in her own right. I don't think she even knows how talented and interesting her art is. She did a
her
show where
knitting, her endless
yeah,
knitting.
but she does other things besides the knitting. But the knitting, she did an art show once that was just things she knit to watching Bruce Willis movies, and it's hilarious. So she's got a great
She's
sense of
got an
humor,
amazing sense of humor. She's very quirky,
very quick
very
and funny.
clever.
And she's also been pursuing baking. She's gone to very serious baking schools to learn how to make pastry. And she's also a marathon runner.
Is she?
Yeah,
Wow,
I know. So she finally
that's
has found an outlet that's, I mean, that's amazing. Again, cannot say enough about exercise. Go and move your body in some fashion. You'll never feel sad that you moved your body.
yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I'm so pleased that she's doing well because she's a very sweet person. She was very close to my son, actually. I mean, Josh and Dee were good friends whenever they got to see each other, whatever
Hmm.
country we all happen to be in at any given time. Well, please, do you speak to her a lot?
I do. I'm just getting back in there. Just
Good.
I'm a
Give her my
bully.
love, won't you?
I'm a
Will you,
love bully. I just keep going. Now is it today? Today? Can we today?
can we speak? Well, please give her my love as
I
well. I mean,
will.
we spend a
Thank you
lot of
so
time
much.
together. So, well, that's, whew, I don't even, I've got questions after questions and names. I mean, when Gail got involved with politics and got involved with the Gores and she put all that money into Democrats, I mean, I wonder how she'd be behaving this week with the elections going on. She'd be going crazy about Trump and getting angrier and angrier.
Ugh.
And having Tipper Gore, I remember playing drums in Frank's studio downstairs. I mean, crazy,
Yep, yep. I know.
all the things I made notes of, but
Wild reversals of
yeah.
Frank battling Tipper, and then Tipper playing drums on a song of divas. Absolutely, with Dweezil
There
producing.
was
Hilarious.
it was the most it was eccentric, it was culturally interesting, it was fun. There were moments of incredible fun and crazy amongst all the craziness, but
Yeah.
still now is the
Yeah, I mean,
time for
one of my favorite visual memories is after my father passed, Gail had this tradition of at Christmas of getting nine undecorated Christmas trees and putting them in the living room so tall as the ceiling. And so she basically would build a forest inside the house, and you'd have dinner in a forest. And
that's
that was
amazing, really.
amazing, completely amazing. And then birthday parties, she would fill a very large swimming pool with watermelons, and it was just a beautiful visual, also refreshing because it kept the pool wasn't heated, so you just cut open a watermelon and have some refreshing
Some rushing cold watermelon. it
exactly.
was it was all incredible, it was all incredible, and lots of good things, I guess, along with all the rest of it, I'm
Well,
sure.
yes, I guess they come hand in hand, so
Yeah, and I have to say, it always surprises me. Well, I don't know why it should surprise me. It shouldn't at all. But there is this obsessive fan following still of men, particularly, well, it is men really, who are absolutely um, fascinated and hypnotized by everything Frank has ever said or done. I mean, a friend of mine who works with me sometimes, I bumped into her and her husband yesterday and said, oh, I've just finished reading Moon Zappa's book. And her husband, who's a Canadian musician, sort of went, oh, and so I mean, that's just a guy up the road. I mean, he had an amazing effect, Frank, and his work on millions of, I think at that point, sort of young men growing up who were sort of learning about themselves and whatever work he was doing. I remember seeing his opera, the opera that got banned from the Albert Hall, which had censored. Gail got it put on at the Festival Hall. Were you there?
Yes, exactly.
I was there, and I was there. There was a few of us, Pamela, there was a few of us there, and I had no idea what to expect. And then I remember BBC Philharmonic Orchestra coming on, and then the chorus that are the BBC singers, all with these big purple and blue dildos in their hand and these raincoats playing journalists. I mean, it was mind-blowing. It was amazing. Absolutely brilliant, actually. So,
so ahead of his time. I think that the people really respond to Frank because he made them feel like they could be free. They could access freedom. I think he was terribly funny. And and people that didn't feel like they had a voice, really. I mean, he really spoke for the underdog and the people that just didn't, they weren't handsome, strong, popular. They were the people that are the behind the scenes guys. And so they felt that they had
they had a hero, they had a champion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
No question about that. Anyway, wow. Whew, thank you so much. Thank you for finding the time to speak.
Anytime. I'll always find the time for you, Lynn. I just love you to bits. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed listening to my chat with my friend Moon Zappa as much as I enjoyed having it. I'm sure we all have family stories to tell, some more painful than others, but all hopefully giving us an opportunity for growth and love. My special seed exercise to go with this podcast with Moon is to give some thought to someone in your family, perhaps who you haven't spoken to recently or even have had a disagreement with, and we all do. Put them in your prayers and reach out somehow, whether sending them a card or a text or a call, and tell them how much you do love them. It won't go wasted. If you enjoyed what you heard and would like to learn more practical methods to help you plant the seeds in your own empowerment journey, then please subscribe to this podcast, rate it and review. Also, please make sure you visit my website, lynnefranks.com, where you can join my mailing list if you haven't already, and together with the thousands of like-minded women who have become part of my seed network, meet up through my coaching courses, seed programs and retreats. So see you next time when I'm in intimate conversation with my friend Rebecca Campbell, one of the world's top spiritual authors and teachers.